as we saw earlier. But it also made a backsplash, as it dug into the seabed there and into the mantle, kaboom, back in the direction it came from, it threw up a splash wave. You know how a drop of water splashes up and over?
Right.
This threw up seabed and mantle. And I talked about this a few months back now on air, and I got a Skype message from a geologist, an oil exploration geologist, an American from California, but he was over in the middle of Mongolia. And he had his little laptop, and he said, I got to talk to you because I can prove what you're saying is right. We've been looking for that, the cause of what happened to Saudi Arabia. So we got to talking. We talked for hours on the Skype thing. And then he sent me some slides from lectures he delivered inside the company. And they had done some analysis, some core samples and seismology across Oman, which is if you're looking at this graph where it says the plain, where the word plain is, you look kind of at a 45-degree up to the right. That's Oman. And they found 10,000 feet, 5 miles deep of ocean bed and mantle that splashed back up onto it. It's called ophiolite. And they could not understand what did it. This did it. And it sank. The gravity changed in the air because of the mass, and it sank that part of, or lowered that part of Atlantis, or Arabia. At the same time, it lifted the part up near the Mediterranean, that's 16 to 1,700 feet. It just tilted the whole darn island. Even the old Bedouins have their tales of Arabia are not of the Arabian Peninsula connected to Europe. They're of Arabia, the island. And, modern scientists make fun of it. But no, it really was an island. And I looked into the official explanation of how the continents broke up and how they moved back and forth with plate tectonics. And Africa and Arabia were semi-connected. They were close together. But they were further away from Europe than they are now. And there was a sea, a gap in the sea opening as I show it there. And as time has passed, the North Africa and Saudi Arabia have moved, or all of Arabia have moved up and touched Europe at the tip where Turkey and Syria join, there at the Straits of Hercules. So scientifically, I've now answered a great mystery that they have about what caused that overburden to come out of the sea in the mantle and splash and sink down by 5 miles, Oman. That's just... he was very excited about it, and needless to say, we're still discussing other things that are proving it. But
would there have been a major methane release too?
I suppose there would have been, yeah.
That would have had a lot to do with the weather change and with even the tidal surges and stuff. You see, I forget how many feet you just said that the color was different, but a lot of that could be because of a methane bubble bursting, right? Methane
or a bunch of them.
Or a bunch of them, yeah.
Because normally you'll get methane releases, from methane hydrates that are frozen on the seabed. And something like that meteor impact definitely would have formed the Indian Ocean side, but because of the strength of the impact, it would have warmed water and earth all over to the point that any methane hydrates that were in crystalline ice form would have released their gas if they were up near the surface of the bottom of the sea, and you would have seen foam everywhere.
So actually the global temperature raised up then.
Oh, I think it did. Yes, definitely. Before this happened, and the Earth was, the surface of the Earth was rotating around the old North Pole. By the way, the old North Pole was over Iceland,
right.
And it was at that time, Iceland was at the top and everything was spinning around him. You'll see a little fracture that joins Iceland to the current location, or drifting location of the North Pole. If you go into Google Earth and look at Iceland, you'll see that. Now, Iceland, where that fracture is in the middle of Iceland, goes over to where it wanders over to where the North Pole is today. That is having a lot of trouble with the Barbarunga volcanic vents all along a fissure. It's not just a volcano; it's a fissure-cano. The whole thing has been being active more or less, over the last 2 or 3, maybe even 10 years. National Geographic has filmed it. They've sent crews over. Just this long line of fire, of magma just shooting up in there. And that was where the North Pole was at the time of the impact. And it suffered. I mean, when you take a thin film of the bubble of Earth, and you and you shock it like that, it's going to
Right.
spin and move faster than the inside of the planet by heaps. And it won't take as much energy as people thought when they were trying to move a solid planet. It's like trying to blow the skim milk on top of chocolate milk or something. To blow that foam, it's easy to do rather than try to move the whole cup of chocolate.
And the stored energy of the concussion as the volume of it would have grown over the distance that it carried it, would have gained strength, just like a tsunami, right?
Yeah.
So where let's just say it's a big fist that punches the balloon, okay?
Yep.
Let's just a thick skin balloon, and it create a blister in the balloon, and as that that mass has to go somewhere, and as it travels further, then that energy would increase. Until it started decreasing.
Well, it depends also on the geological formations that the wave is passing through, because some will reflect, some will focus, some will dissipate. So there would be or like strong and weak points along that front, where the strong points would be where part of the shock wave is added together, and it'll be even stronger.
I mean, I've got this vision of my father taking an asteroid and saying, okay, I want you to hit it right here at this such and such angle. You know what I'm saying? The precision that it hit, instead of destroying the planet and destroying all life, it accomplished his will.
Absolutely.
And that is what's amazing to me, that the Lord did that so precisely to create exactly the atmosphere that he wanted for our creation.
Yeah. Now look at this. That means that Noah was an Atlantean.
Wow.
Think about it. Think about the culture that was destroyed around him, and think about what Poseidon's Atlantis was.
That would answer so many questions. Just saying that.
Yep.
I mean, then Lamech would have been an Atlantean.
A number of the old guys there. Yeah. Now, if you're looking at that graph there, or that image still, you see that white circle around the land of Eden and the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
People tend to forget that there was the land of Eden, and in the east of it, God planted a garden.
Right.
Now, that's in the discussion on the Garden of Eden, and I've put that into a DVD on the website, and I've also discussed it on the website off of that show images page. I think down midway there's a link to see about the lecture and some of the things I discuss with people. But that shows you where Eden and the Garden of Eden was. If you see those kind of purpley ridges, those are mountains. And they follow up to the right toward the tip of Arabia or Atlantis in this drawing, and that where it's kind of a triangle of green there, just at the southern tip of Atlantis, that is called the Gulf of Aden.
Right.
And that was called that because when Adam and Eve were taken out of the garden, they migrated down through the Great East African Rift into Saudi Arabia, or the Arabian Peninsula, or Atlantis, and part of them migrated over north into Egypt and were treated as gods by some of the locals there, which were probably, hybrids from the fallen ones mixing with humans. I don't know whether it was Adam and Eve's offspring or some other kind of human that was, a biped that was there. There's still a lot of gray areas there. But anyway, you can see the path, the major path of the Eden migration into.
So let me ask you this question: would Nod have been in the land of Eden, but outside the garden?
You're a little ahead of me, but I'll tell you, it was to the east of the garden.
Right.
Just look up where India is.
Yep.
Okay. Now look in the seabed between the Garden of Eden and India. You see that little crack that forms the outline of the Indian coast?
Yep.
Okay. That meant India was down there at some time, and it meant that. Madagascar, which is you can just see the tip of it at the bottom there. Madagascar was up into the east of Eden there, joined onto Northeast Africa, and Africa joined to India near what's called the Karnataka goldfields. And when Cain went to get his wife, you say, who did he marry? Did he take a wife from the hybrids that the fallen ones were making? Were they making hybrids from Neanderthals with their own bloodline, to compete with God's perfect Adam and Eve? There's a lot of questions that aren't properly answered yet, but we know that there were a number of type of hominids in the
Well,
area.
well, you're right, and we also know, and this is just something I speculate on, from the account in Genesis of the serpent speaking to Eve. It wasn't like a snake it wasn't like Eve showed any surprise that the serpent was speaking to her.
Yeah, they can speak to the animals.
So
yeah.
was the serpent like a biped? Maybe an ape-like creature. I mean, if you look at it that way, serpent would be. We could look at it before the Lord changed its form. It would have been probably similar to the form that Satan had taken.
Did you ever see the movie V?
Years ago, I saw the original one.
The original one, where they looked like humans until they took their skin off.
Until they took their skin off. Yeah.
They were lizards.
Yeah, they were lizards.
That's serpentine with 2 feet and a tail.
Right.
Or maybe no tail, I can't remember. But anyway, they were really disguised as humans, but underneath they were these serpent beings.
They were raising food.
Right.
Yeah. I remember that show. Yeah,
okay, now you asked about Nod. We haven't finished yet.
Okay.
Now, the Karnataka region hit where the Garden of Eden is, but now, remember, Cain and Abel weren't in the Garden of Eden at that time. They never were. They were given to Adam and Eve after they were taken out of the garden.
Right.
So, if you look at the migration path toward Arabia from the land of Eden, the Garden of Eden, it goes up the upper right. When India was connected to North Africa, the Indus River Valley, and you can see that dark green border around India between it and the Himalayas, that dark green.
Yeah.
Okay. At the left tip of that, as it goes into the ocean, that was a part of the river that went around, the whole country, one of the rivers of Eden. And that area touched right on the tip of Somalia, which is underneath the word plain, and straight down into the tip of North Africa. That was where Cain left to go find his wife to the east. Remember, the planet was straight up and down before the flood. And east would have been straight into the Indus River Valley. Well, what the verb nod means is to wander. The men should wander as fugitives in Hebrew. Nod, nud, okay?
Right.
And the future tense of that plural for masculine is Indu. Indus River Valley. The men shall wander as fugitives. And God marked Cain with the blood mark on his forehead. Today, it's called the Bindi, the B-I-N-D-I, in India. And God marked him so that whoever would take his life would, suffer terribly for it. So people steered clear of killing him.
And wait a minute now. And to make him maybe look like everybody else in the land of Nod.
Well, the land of Nod, they don't know why they wear the Bindi mark on their head. The Hindus don't know why they do it, where it came from.
It may have originated with Cain.
But if it did, why would any of Noah's sons or descendants go down to India and say, we're going to wear the blood mark and be like Cain? Some of Cain's descendants must have survived the flood.
Absolutely. Or that memory followed with Noah's sons, and one of them decided, I'm going to be like great.
It would have to be just one of them, because they divided the earth into three sections for the
we
sons.
know there was one who embarrassed his father.
Ham.
Exactly. So we look at the children of Ham. So this is interesting, because this looks forward to the mark that's given, in the forehead, or on the on the right hand, or in the forehead.
Right.
The mark of the beast. So would you consider that at the time Cain was the beast, right? He lost.
I hadn't thought about it. I'll think on that. He was the fallen.
What separates us from the beast? We can control our tempers. We can control our sexual urges. We are loving. We are kind. That's what separates men from beasts. We can control ourselves. Abel controlled himself. Cain couldn't control himself. And this is, we're not talking about Cain because the Lord marked Cain so he wouldn't be killed, but we see that this might be a precursor of why men are marked in the last days, because they have all of the characteristics of a beast.
I'd never thought about that, but that's a good point. Yeah, yeah.